What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing, coming at you from Verona, Wisconsin on Thursday. It is negative 20 or something outside, negative hell, as I like to call it. Guys, we have a meaningful Packers-Bears game, an extremely meaningful Packers-Bears game for the first time in a long time in the month of December. It has been a long time since we could say that. We are going to preview the Packers-Bears game on this episode from a pure entertainment perspective. I'm in love with this matchup. I'm super excited. I hate the Bears with a burning passion more than any other team, but I do think they put together a hell of a team. I think they're about a year or two, maybe 2 years ahead of where I thought they would be record-wise. But as we'll talk about in this episode, they're not quite as good as their record might indicate. They do present a lot of challenges for the Packers, and the stakes in this game could not be bigger. Packers have to win this game, guys. And it's at this point, last week was their most important game of the season. Now this one's the most important game of the season. And honestly, every week up until the final bell rings is going to be the most important week for the Packers the rest of the way. Getting the number one seed is, I think they got a 15% chance right now. If they win out, it's 78%. So they need to win out. I think if they get one more loss to one of the AFC teams, they have like a 28% chance of getting the one seed. That tie really is the reason that they're in this position. They would be in a much better spot had they not tied the Cowboys. Regardless, the number one goal is to win the division, and you really can't win it unless you take at least one of these Bears games for yourself. Now, again, it's at home this week, Packers-Bears in Lambeau. Then it's Broncos next week, and then it's Bears again in Chicago on Saturday Night Football, so on a short week. I must admit, I think this game is the one that they need to win the most. I think if they go into the Chicago game in whatever the hell it's called in Chicago, and lose that game, Soldier Field. It's not going to be quite as big of a deal, especially if they can win that Broncos game. Anyway, let's get into the matchup. I'll stop rambling. Let's look at DVOA first for the Bears, which tells us a hell of a story. So offensively, they're 14th in DVOA. 12th in passing DVOA, and 11th in rushing. The rushing is, again, DVOA takes into consideration the strength of opponent. And it's not like, oh, X team has, an 8-3 record, and they ran against that team. No, it's what was that person's DVOA in offense versus your DVOA in defense. So that's why DVOA is so nice, because it figures in the strength of the opponent's units, not the team overall. Well, the team overall also. So I do think it's surprising to see that the passing game is so high for them, because as we'll talk about in a little bit, Caleb Williams has not been great this year. And then their running game, they have the number one rushing offense in the NFL, and they're 11th in rushing DVOA. So that would indicate a lot of their success has come against bad teams. Then they go out and they, what I would say, curb stomp the Eagles last week, which nobody saw coming, myself included. The Eagles look broken, to say the least. I think some of these numbers took a jump after the Eagles game. I'm actually not convinced that DVOA has even put the Eagles game in there yet. Maybe I'm wrong. But defensively, this is where the hole is at. Defensively, they're 25th overall, 22nd in passing defense, 26th in rushing defense. So where this team is dominating, and you might say, well, how are they an 8-3, 9-3 team with their DVOA where it is? Well, there's one big reason for that, especially on defense, and it's turnovers. They lead the NFL in turnovers. They forced 26 turnovers. I believe the Packers have like 12. I don't have the number in front of me, just for comparison's sake. The Bears have the most turnovers forced in the entire NFL. And this is what's allowed them to come back in some of these games they've been down. It's how they've been able to win some of these close games. And even in Philly last week, right? You have Jalen Hurts throwing a really, really ugly interception up the sidelines to Kevin Byard. And then there was the strip sack, or I guess strip on the sneak to Jalen Hurts by Nashawn Wright, who's got 5 picks himself. Turnovers, guys, they're fluky. If any of you guys are really plugged into the NFL, you've probably heard this said over and over again. They come in waves, right? And, last year's a good example for the Packers, right? They got a lot of turnovers all year. And even if you took turnovers out of the equation, their defense was really good last year. But those turnovers really do help, cover up some holes, we'll say. But then in the playoffs against the Eagles, I don't think they got a single turnover, right? I don't think they got one against the Bears either in the final week. I don't even know if they got one against the Vikings the week before that. So again, turnovers do fade. And if you don't have a good defense behind it, turnovers are going to catch up and you're going to get beaten, right? And that's sort of what we're hoping for this week. As far as general stats for the Bears, they're pretty impressive on offense. They're 6th in yards per game, 2nd in rush yards per game, 15th in pass yards. So again, a little bit further down in pass yards. And then 26 points per game is 8th in the NFL in their points per game on offense. Defensively is where it's ugly. They have the 25th point per game given up. So 25 points a game is what they're giving up. They're giving up 360 yards per game total, which is 27th in the NFL. And then as far as rushing allowed, 133 a game, which is 28th. And then, like I said, their pass defense is solid. It's not good, but solid. 225 a game, which is 22nd in the NFL. So regular stats, they are not great for the Bears on defense, but pretty damn good on offense. Their point differential is finally positive, which if you guys don't know what point differential is, it's how many points have you scored versus how many points have you given up. And up until this last week against Philly, the Bears had a negative point differential, which would indicate they're a much worse team than their record, which I think is indisputable at this point. Doesn't mean they're a bad team, but they're more like a 7-5 team, in my opinion, than a 9-3 team. We'll just say that. They've won a couple games they should not have won. One of them was the Saints, by the way, who's probably the worst team in the league. All right, and again, the point differential on the other side of it, they got completely shellacked by the Lions in week 2. They lost like 51-20 or something like that. It was crazy. So again, all these Bears fans were saying, yeah, you guys haven't beaten anybody either. No, we actually have beaten the team that shellacked you guys twice, pretty handily in both games, but I digress. Let's talk about their Bears offense first, the keys on defense for the Packers. We'll start with the top 5 players on offense for the Bears by PFF. Offense. You'll notice a theme here. Their number one ranked player is Drew Dahlman, their center. He has an 82 grade. He's got a 75 pass blocking grade, but as we'll talk about, guys, 82 run blocking grade. Drew Dahlman, I think, was the person the Packers should have brought in instead of Aaron Banks. And I think I was texting my cousin Laven about this in free agency. I thought he would have been a good option, especially considering they did not re-sign what's his name? Josh Myers. I don't know what their plan was at center going into this season. I think they obviously figured it out eventually. I think all of us kind of figured like Elton Jenkins will probably move to center, and then Jordan Morgan would be left guard, Sean Ryan would be right guard, and so on and so forth. But Drew Dahlman's a really good player, and the Bears, I guess supposedly he took a discount to play on the Bears, which I think is interesting. He's played insanely well this year. I don't even know offensive line play, and I know he's played well. Number 2 is their first-round pick from a few years ago, Darnell Wright. He's their right tackle. He's got a 78.5 grade. 80 run blocking grade, so again, insane run blocking grade, and then a 72 pass blocking grade. So again, above average in the run game on their offensive line, slightly above average in the pass blocking department. Colson Loveland, their rookie tight end, is their 3rd overall player, 75 overall grade. Really love this kid. When they drafted him, I was like, man, why did they not pick Tyler Warren? Which I still think would have been the right move, but man, Colson Loveland is playing much better. They've incorporated him a lot into the passing game. They do a lot of 2 tight end sets, which I wish the Packers could do. I thought they would do more, by the way, when Tucker Kraft was healthy, but I digress. Number 4 is DeAndre Swift. He started out really slow this year. He actually was pretty bad last year, but he's been really good during this win streak. A lot of it due to blocking. Like I said, he's got a lot of room to run. I actually like Kyle Monungai better, who we'll talk about in a minute. But DeAndre Swift, some of his production, if you guys watch their games, I've watched about 6 Bears games this week. Yeah, I know, it's painful. He gets a lot of yards on draws and outside runs. That's not going to work against the Packers. It's just not. So I do think Monungai is going to be the bigger threat in this game, but we'll talk about it in a bit. And then at 5th, it's Jonah Jackson, their guard, and Joe Tooney, their other guard. They're both tied, identical, 74.1 grade. So as you can see, their entire offensive line is in the top 5 of their graded players. So their offensive line has been a massive reason for their improvement this year. And I can't begin to stress, I can't even tell you guys how impressive their running game has been. And again, they did the right thing. And I do think the Packers have had this formula the whole time we've been watching them since the Ron Wolf era. Build an offensive line up front. Now, have they been successful with that? Not so much. I mean, they're going to need some of this luck or whatever you call it, building an offensive line in 26. But again, from a run blocking standpoint, they've been extremely good in this game or in this season. If the Bears win this game, it is going to be completely because of the ability to rush the football, right? I will say this from a pass blocking standpoint. When they face the better defensive lines, with the exception of last week, I think last week was quite the anomaly, they've given up a lot of pressure, particularly in true pass sets. This is what I want to discuss really quick. So again, true pass sets is like they're in shotgun in an obvious passing situation. How many pressures do they give up in that situation? They give up a upper half of the league amount of pressures. But the reason why they have a pretty good pass blocking grade overall, and why Caleb has a lot of time to throw statistically, is because they do a lot of play action. So if the rush doesn't get there in a play action situation, it doesn't count in the true pass set numbers. So when they have had true pass sets, they've struggled a bit, especially against the teams that they've played that are good. They do block well in play action, and again, those do count, right? But this is why the Packers need to limit even more what they do in the run game. I do want to just quickly go through the teams they've played and just go through just a couple notes really quick. I'm not trying to bash the Bears too much, but they haven't faced a great pass rush this season. Now, I'm going to kind of just do this. It's not part of my notes. I just want to go through this. In Minnesota, week 1, Caleb got pretty beat up. They lost that game. Detroit, week 2, Aiden Hutchinson went crazy. They lost that game. Dallas, they won 31-14. Dallas did not have a pass rush. Famously in week 3, and we saw that in week 4, they could not rush the passer. Vegas, Max Crosby, he did do pretty well in this game. They only won that game by 1 point on a last-minute field goal. And Vegas is terrible. Washington Commanders, they have a really poor pass rush. They won that game. New Orleans, poor pass rush. They won that game. Baltimore, they lost 30-16. Poor pass rush on that team as well. Cincinnati, I believe in this particular game, Trey Hendrickson was out. The Bears did win that game, so when Trey Hendrickson's out, who's rushing the passer? Nobody. The Giants game, they won that game 24-20. The Giants beat them up front. Again, a really good defensive line. They beat them up. Minnesota, they won 19-17 on a last-minute field goal. Again, guys, this is a J.J. McCarthy Minnesota, by the way. They barely won that game. They gave up a lot of pressure in that game. But again, a lot of it was sim pressure. Pittsburgh, they won 31-28. Really good pass rush in that one. They struggled there. And then last week against Philadelphia, Caleb was clean. I mean, there was some pressure on Caleb, but the offensive line played out of their minds last week. So my point being in going through the games is to point out they haven't faced a pass rush like the Packers yet, particularly Micah Parsons. Now, they do play the Browns in a couple weeks. That's going to be interesting. I think it might be next week they play the Browns. We'll see how much our boy Myles Garrett eats them up. So that's kind of their offensive line. I think they have a great offensive line, super impressive. However, I don't want to sit here and pretend like they've played these all-world defensive lines because they haven't. I think that's propped their numbers up a little bit in terms of pass blocking. Running back, DeAndre Swift, they have him. He's played really well. Kyle Monangai, though, he's their fifth-round pick. He's a hell of a find. He had 100 yards rushing this last week. He's looked pretty good in general. He reminds me a lot of Marion Barber. If you guys remember him, it's not because of the dreadlocks either. He just runs really, really hard. He's got really good acceleration. And, of course, I had him in my fantasy league, and I let him go. And now I don't have a freaking running back. RIP. But he's been really good. Much more of a power guy. He's really, really tough to tackle. This game, if you guys haven't seen, is going to be really, really cold this weekend in Green Bay. So, not going to be fun tackling our boy Kyle Monangai. From a wide receiver tight end standpoint, they got a lot of guys that I like. DJ Moore, obviously, he's been tough for the Packers to stop at times since he's been there, particularly with Justin Fields. But he's got a 65 grade this year, so nothing crazy there. Then they have Rome Odunze, Luther Burden. They're two young guys at receiver. I love them both with a burning passion. I love Luther Burden. You guys remember I knew the Packers wouldn't take him just because of the off-field and the size, I guess we'll say. I didn't think they would take him, and they didn't. But he's been pretty good. They both have 70 grades this year, and they're pretty dangerous. When Luther Burden gets the ball, he does really, really well. Tight end, Cole Kmet. He's their other tight end next to Colson Loveland. He's more of your inline blocking tight end, but they can kind of move around. I've been a big fan of his since he came out. So again, they got some weapons here that are pretty scary. Now, again, I think they just started figuring out how good Colson Loveland is. I'm the most concerned about these tight ends against the Packers linebackers. And I didn't even put it in my keys to the game, but I do think that if there's a matchup that the Bears can win, it's that one. Now, let's talk about Caleb Williams, a very polarizing individual, to say the least. I'll start by complimenting him. He is what I would call a generational talent at the running back position. Some of the stuff that he can do out of structure, truly incredible. Last year he had his moments, but largely he was pretty inaccurate and inconsistent. He had a hard time with his reads at times. He does not throw with any anticipation even this year. And again, if you guys watch the QB School on YouTube, he talks about anticipation all the time. And I've talked about it before. That's one thing Jordan Love's been doing very well since he took over as a starter in 23. And anticipation is throwing the ball where the receiver is supposed to be, not where he is. So in other words, like in flag football, you're like, who's open? Raise your hand, I'll throw it to you. This is like, who are we looking for in our reads? Which play is there based on the coverage? Jordan throws it before the receiver's out of his break sometimes. And that's what good quarterbacks do. Caleb does not do that. There's definitely more of it this season. And I could have missed plenty of it too. I only watched a couple games. I think 4 games, not 6, by the way, that I watched full games. But he took a lot of sacks last year. And he had his moments, right? This year, he's not taking as many sacks. We'll get into a couple different stats in a second, but if you go look at how the O-line graded out last season, they were actually a top 12 offensive line in pass blocking grade. And I have Bears fans that are friends that might listen to this podcast. If you do, hello, guys. Here's the thing I'll say about that. Yeah, their offensive line last year was not even half as good as it is this season. But the way that Bears fans talked about their O-line last year and how Caleb was just running for his life all year, if you watch that closely, their win rate was in the top 12 of the league last year. Caleb just held on to the ball too long. And he's still doing it this season, by the way, but he has a really good offensive line. And they haven't faced a lot of pass rushers. I would consider what happened last season bad coaching. And I think everyone would agree they had bad coaching last year. Eberflus and I forget the guy's name that they had. Shane Waldron. That's what his name was. And last season, guys, these particular Bears fans, you guys know who you are. All I heard was how good their coaching staff was. And Shane Waldron's going to make Caleb great. Look what he did in Seattle with Russell Wilson. That dude was the most hated man in Chicago last year by like week 6. So again, it's just funny how fast everybody flips when they realize they're wrong. Oh, I never said that. Of course you did. And I have the receipts, by the way. Okay, let's get on to this season. So Caleb's passing grade from PFF is a 68. Again, passing grade. In comparison, Jordan's is 89. Again, I'm only going to compare these just because these are 2 quarterbacks in the game, right? Caleb's adjusted completion percentage is only 69%. So that accounts for drops and people being in the wrong spot, so on and so forth. Jordan is 78, so almost 10 points higher at the top of the league. Caleb Williams' EPA per play, adjusted for strength of schedule, is 24th in the league. Jordan is number 1. So I could keep going, and again, like I said, I'm not trying to compare Jordan to Caleb, right? There is no comparison at this point, and this is not a homer take. Jordan has been better in every single category except maybe ad-lib plays. In fact, I would say for sure ad-lib plays, Caleb's better. All I'm doing is pointing out that Caleb's not quite as good as his numbers would indicate, nor as good as some Bears fans make him out to be. You know, there were people last year throwing up, Caleb Williams' stats compared to Jaden Daniels' stats. Like, look, Jaden Daniels won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Why didn't Caleb? Because you guys didn't watch the games. You looked at the stats. Okay? So stats don't tell the whole story. Trust me on that. But again, where Caleb's been really good this season, there's been a couple different areas, right? He's been really good in the fourth quarter. He's been, especially in like the scrambling, he single-handedly won that Giants game with his legs. And he does a really, really good job of avoiding sacks and working off schedule. You saw it in the game last week. He threw that touchdown to Cole Kmet. There's only a handful of guys in the league that can do that. And I don't know if anybody can do it as smooth as Caleb did, right? Maybe Pat. And no, not Jordan, because I do think Jordan has better arm talent than Caleb. He's certainly more accurate, but he can't make those types of plays because he doesn't have the legs. So anyway, where Caleb's also good, he's top 12 in EPA per play in the first quarter. I've heard this explained very well, by the way. The first few drives is where they're doing all their scripted stuff, right? That's the stuff you work on in practice all week. It's part of your game plan. And then after the couple first drives, and that, by the way, just shows you how good Ben Johnson is. I want to give a second to gas him up. But once Caleb has to go off schedule and the script is over, that's when he struggles a little bit. And that's why you see a really high EPA per play in the first quarter. And then the fourth quarter too, right? But the second and third quarter, he's not very good. And you can see that in almost every game that you watch this season. So let's get into the keys for the Packers defense. Key number 1, stop the damn run and make Caleb beat you with his arm. As I mentioned before, the Bears' game plan is going to be super simple. It's going to beat the Packers on the ground, limit possessions. They're going to take that same exact game plan the Panthers did, and honestly the one the Giants tried to use as well. They weren't successful with it, but they're going to, They're going to see that early success the Vikings had running the ball. They're going to see what the Panthers did, right? And they're going to say, that's what we're going to do. Rightfully so. They don't want to get in obvious passing situations with Micah Parsons running at Caleb's face. And the Bears don't want to see Halfley's play designs, mixing coverage, blitz packages, all that either, right? So they're going to come in. They're going to say, we're going to run you guys. We're going to run the piss out of the ball. Now, the Packers, they just lost Devontae Wyatt for the season. They did sign a guy whose name is escaping me at this point, Jordan Ryan, maybe, something like that. More of a nose tackle. We'll talk about him a little bit. We'll see if he's active for this game this week. But again, the reason that their run defense has been good is not because of Devontae Wyatt. He's much more of a asset in passing situations. But again, you look at last week against the Lions, right? They like to run outside. That's where Jahmyr Gibbs is so lethal. When you have linebackers as athletic as the Packers do, and Quay Walker will be back in this one, I'll bet my life on it, that's an advantage for Green Bay. Now, the Bears, they like to run up the middle, and they want to go toe-to-toe with this defensive line. That's what they want to do. The Packers have got to stop the run in this game. They have to. We just went through all the reasons that Caleb's not great, so make him beat you. Make him throw it to Evan Williams, Carrington Valentine, Xavier McKinney, whoever else back there. You guys know damn well Caleb wants to win this game. He wants to beat the hell out of the Packers. He had that final game last year where he went on a game-winning drive, albeit against the Packers' backups. Look, if they run the game, or if they run the ball in this game, they can win. If Caleb has to drop back, they're going to lose. Simple as that. I think you take advantage of Caleb's willingness to kill the Packers and beat them bad, and he's going to try to probably overdo it a little bit. And I think the Packers are going to have no problem scoring. So if the Bears want to run the ball, that's what their plan's going to be. The best run defense is a good offense. We've seen it for years. Look at the years Joe Barry was here, especially 2021. The Packers got ahead so early in games. That's why the other teams couldn't run the ball. Not because they couldn't run the ball. Believe me, they could. Anyway, key number 2, pressure Caleb and finish the damn sack when you have him. That's key number 2. Caleb's scrambling ability has, and honestly, if you guys look back at the first Packers game last year, and by the way, he's way faster than I thought. In that game last season, he diced them up with his legs. And he's got multiple carries this year where he crosses 20 miles an hour. I think he's the only quarterback that's done that the last 7 years or something like that. I saw the stat and it's escaping me now. On top of that, when you do have a position to sack him, he's really hard to tackle. And he reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers in that aspect, and Pat Mahomes too, where he's just slippery back there. No, again, this Packers defensive line and linebackers are really fast, far faster than the average. But that was also true last year, and he still hurt them. So if you have a play on Caleb, you're about to drop him for a sack, you've got to finish it. Swarm to the damn ball, hold him up if you need to, let somebody else get there. And if you let him escape the pocket, you better bring him down shortly, right? And if you do have him in the backfield, bring him down. I know this is obvious. You guys are like, duh, Ian. But it's really hard to tackle this dude. And the Packers have struggled to bring people down in sacks this year. There have been plenty this season where the quarterback has escaped miraculously. Look at Jacoby Brissett in that game, the Cardinals game. The Packers had him behind the line 3 times, and he busted a tackle. Now, Brissett's a little stronger than Caleb, but Caleb is much more athletic. So if you have an opportunity to create a long down and distance in this game, you got to take it. You do not want the Bears, the team with the better running game, in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5 even, right? If they're on the other side of the 50, they're going to go for it. So if you pressure Caleb, you need to pressure him, right? Finish the damn play when you have it. Simple as that. Key number 3, take advantage of your opportunities when Caleb gives them to you. He had that terrible interception last week to Jalix Hunt, I believe it was, on the screen. Their play against the Steelers a couple weeks ago was one of the worst plays I've ever seen. Believe me, guys, if Jordan Love did that play, and he did it last year, by the way, Bears fans would have screenshotted and recorded that and posted it all over Twitter about, this is your guy. So, again, you know that was a bad play when that would happen. Take advantage of your opportunities. Simple as that. Caleb's going to throw you 1 or 2 in every game, and you need to catch it. You're not going to get away with what happened against the Giants a few weeks ago where you drop 5 picks. Caleb throws you one from doing too much and trying to win the game himself. You got to catch it. Simple as that. I think we finally see Carrington Valentine get a pick in this game. I'm making a prediction right now. CV's going to get a pick. With the Bears being the best in the league at turnovers, there's a decent chance they get one in this game on offense. So that means on defense, you got to match it and try to counterbalance it a bit. If the Bears do turn it over multiple times, though, I think it's going to be really hard for them to win the game. So to simplify it on defense, stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. The Packers have been able to do that this season when they've needed to, and they have to do it in this game. The one place, just to kind of summarize, the one place the Packers defense has struggled this season, and we saw it against the Lions, by the way, is that short and intermediate pass defense. But the Bears, they're 30th in the NFL in short pass rate, meaning they don't do it very often, and they're 30th in EPA per play on intermediate passes. So when they do try to throw between 5 and 15 yards, they're not good at it. So I do think the Packers have an advantage there also, and they do make you go the whole distance of the field. Okay, let's switch over to the Bears defense and the Packers keys on offense. A lot more simple in this one. Let's do their top 5 quick. Kevin Byard, their safety, 79.3. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I wasn't paying attention, but like Andy Herman from Pack-A-Day said, like he looked cooked last year. He's leading the league in interceptions this season. For a coverage grade from PFF, he's in the 80s. He's had a great year. So Kevin Byard, he's, kind of has a McKinney-like look to him last season. TJ Edwards, their linebacker, he's finally coming back. He looks like he practiced yesterday, and he's going to be questionable for this game, but I think he's going to play. He's their middle linebacker. He hasn't played in about a month, just for context. He's got a 75.1 when he has played. Montez Sweat, their defensive end, 70.3. He's got 36 pressures. He's been an overrated pass rusher for a long time, in my opinion. I remember when, now this hasn't aged well, by the way, but when the Packers gave Rashawn Gary his extension and Montez Sweat got his, it was around the same time. Bears fans were taking this victory lap about how much better Montez Sweat is than Rashawn Gary. And, at that point, it looked ludicrous, right? At this point, Rashawn Gary hasn't been quite as good, but he still has more pressures than Montez Sweat this year. And I will say Sweat's a really good run defender, and so is Rashawn Gary, by the way. But again, a 66 pass rushing grade. He's not scary, and I think Zach Tom can cover him up pretty good in this game. Their number 4 overall player is Nashawn Wright, their cornerback. He's got a 62.1 grade, so again, you can see where the grades fall off. Their 4th best player on defense is an average grade. I think Nashawn Wright is a part-time player now because their corners are coming back. But he's got 5 picks this season, and last week, he's the one who did the strip on the tush push of Jalen Hurts. So he's a playmaker. 62 coverage grade, though, so you can take advantage of him in the pass game. And then number 5, Jaquan Brisker, 61.6. He's only got a 49 coverage grade, though. So again, he's much more of a run stuff or big hitter. I love Jaquan Brisker, though. Oh, I love him. When he came out of the draft, I was a massive fan of his. I loved him at Penn State. Again, been a little bit overrated. I think Bears fans think he's like a top 5 safety in the league, at least the ones I know. He's not even close to that, but he's really, really good in run support coming up in the box. And I think if, the Packers have early success running the ball in this game, he's going to do a lot of that. The biggest threat with this Bears defense, though, is, again, their ability to turn it over. It's that simple. They have 17 picks and 9 fumble recoveries this season. So they're very opportunistic. You got to be concerned about that. But again, their biggest flaw is their lack of pass rush. In the offseason, they signed Dayo Adingbo, who I really liked. By the way, I thought the Packers might sign him. There was a rumor for a minute saying that they were interested. He got hurt early this season. He hasn't played at all. He's out for the year. So that's a massive loss for them. They have Austin Booker, who I like. Again, not a dangerous player, but he does flashes. And then Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who was on the Buccaneers. I think he was on the Browns prior to the Bears. He was a former first-round pick. He was somebody I liked in that draft too, but he's been pretty underwhelming as a pass rusher. He's decent for what they have him do. He's a situational guy. And then they have Montez Sweat, right? I don't think Zach Tom's going to have a single problem with him one-on-one. Still 36 pressures, but not a scary pass rusher. The only other player on their defense with more than 12 pressures is Germon Dexter, their defensive tackle. That's not very good. They did bring in Grady Jarrett at defensive tackle, and I was told, oh boy, was I told, and I saw all over Twitter, this is the steal of the offseason. He's barely got a 50 PFF grade this year. He's been completely useless for them. 0 juice in the pass rush game, which is something he was pretty good at. So again, to summarize, not to beat the nail in too far here, but this team has a hard time getting to the passer without blitzing. In general, the Bears are 31st in pressure rate. Again, there's 32 teams. They're 30th in non-blitz pressure rate, meaning when they don't blitz, they're 30th. And they're only 29th in pass rush win rate. So that means, again, Dennis Allen, their D coordinator, is going to have to blitz. And guess who the number one quarterback against the blitz is this year in the NFL? Jordan Love. And can you guys also guess who's the best quarterback in the league from a clean pocket? Jordan Love. Now, Jordan has struggled when he does get pressured. We'll talk about that another time. But if you can protect Jordan in this game, we'll talk about in a minute, he's going to dice him up. If we just touch on the linebackers quick, like I said, TJ Edwards is going to be back for this game. Might be a little rusty. Tremaine Edmonds, they have two expensive linebackers here in Edwards and Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds has like 4 picks too. They've struggled in run defense, right? And I think last week with Philly was an anomaly. I really do think that was more of a Philly loss than it was a Bears win. But you really can't play that game, and I'm not trying to either. Cornerback, Jalen Johnson's back. Great player. He can do a little bit of both, man coverage and zone coverage, but I do wonder how healthy he actually is. We'll see. I think he's probably going to be you're going to want to look away from his side in this game, I think, for the most part. Kyler Gordon's in the slot. He's back from injury as well. He's kind of just an average player. Then you got Nahshon Wright, who we talked about. And then they'd have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which how the hell he's still playing is beyond me. He's definitely a shell of his former self. So again, I think their corners are quite gettable. And then their safeties, Byard's really, really good. Brisker's bad against the pass, right? So let's talk about offensively really quick. We'll just keep it simple, right? Key number 1, take care of the ball. It's that simple. We've talked about it already. The interceptions the Bears get, fumble recoveries, they're opportunistic when they get those opportunities. They almost always come down with it when they do. And we know Jordan has those weird glitches in games from time to time. He just can't have him in this one. Simple as that. Here's the fun part. If you take turnovers out of the equation, as far as where the defense stacks up for the Bears, they're 30th in EPA per play, 30th in success rate, 30th in dropback EPA, and 28th in rush EPA. So again, if you take turnovers out of the equation, their defense is really bad. Bottom of the league bad. So simple as that. Don't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, I have immense confidence the Packers are going to win this game. And I'd almost put that like 90% if they come in with 0 turnovers. The only way they lose this game is if they turn the ball over and they play one of their signature let's beat ourselves games. Penalties, drops, turnovers, mental errors, whatever. If we see the team that's played the last, I'll say 2.5 weeks, part of the Giants game and then the Vikings and Lions, they'll win this game easily, in my opinion. There's a massive talent gap between these two teams, in my opinion. Key number 2, let Jordan cook. We talked about it a minute ago. Jordan's playing at an MVP level, and really the last 3 weeks he's played outstanding. The Giants game and this Lions game were 2 of the best of his career from a grading standpoint and from the eye test, to be honest. I think the offensive line is going to be able to build on what they've done the last couple weeks. I don't think anyone in this Bears defensive line is going to worry me too much. We've seen improvement in the run game the last few weeks. We saw a lot of room for Josh on a few plays last week. Now, he also got stuffed a few times too, but I like what I saw last week, and the Lions have a really good defense. Ultimately, I think Jaden Reed comes back in this one. Matthew Golden should be back as well. I think if you go 4 or 5 wide here in this game a couple times, spread this defense out, especially if they want to play man-to-man. God, if they want to play man-to-man, there's plenty of ways to beat them. And Dennis Allen's kind of your quarters coverage, man coverage kind of guy. So I do think that there's a pretty good opportunity to dice them up in this game. I really don't think that this is a game where you want to hand it to Josh 40 times or whatever the hell LaFleur might want to do. Let Jordan dice this team up. I think that if he's protected, and I think he will be, they can win this game big on offense. Key number 3, I mentioned the run game a minute ago. Let's build on the run game and the new offensive line configuration. So the one thing that you can say about this team right now, and this doesn't mean that they're going to be doing it when playoffs come, I hope to God they are, they're playing their best football right now when it matters most. And it's mostly because Jordan Love is playing at an MVP level. The offensive line is settling down in the run game and the pass game. And they're opening up a lot of lanes for Josh Jacobs. Simple as that. I have full confidence that they can do that again this week. They need to build on this. This is not the time to fall back into what we saw against the Eagles and the Panthers. At times against the Giants too. I just really like the way that Banks and Ryan have played. Aaron Banks, after that horrible game he had, he's graded out really, really well. And LaFleur said in his press conference, he's kind of turned a corner, and I would agree with him. All the people that I respect that do offensive line grading and whatnot say that he's playing very well. So I have to take their word for it. And, Anthony Belton, he had kind of a rough game last week, right? 6 pressures allowed. He gave up the final pressure on the fourth down that Jordan was able to overcome. I just want to see some continued growth here, right? Key number 4, probably the most obvious one I'll go over. Get an early lead and finish in the red zone. A game like this, where the other team's strength is running the ball, get ahead early, get the Bears out of their scripted stuff. And I said earlier, I think the world of Ben Johnson. When I heard that he was going to the Bears, I got a sick feeling in my stomach because I think he's a phenomenal coach. Now, I do think it was pretty cringy. He took his shirt off after the game. That was weird. Maybe there's some inside joke I'm missing there, but let's make them go 0-1 after Ben Johnson's shirt off incident. You want to get him out of his game plan, right? Get him onto plan B or plan C. And we talked about it earlier. Make Caleb Williams beat you. The best run defense is a good offense, like I said earlier. And I think if you're Green Bay, you mix up the run and pass early, hit some of those explosives. You got to make the damn catch, right? And then most importantly, finish in the red zone. That was the difference last week against that Panthers game, for example. They got into the red zone 5 times against the Panthers and scored once. Majorly below average. Like, that's an anomaly. Last week, I think there were 3 out of 4 in the red zone. So do it again this week. Take advantage of every single opportunity. Simple as that. In summary, this game's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I hope you know I'm not trying to be a homer in this game when I say this. Every advanced metric you find, any way you slice it, outside of win streak, this Packers team is and has been better than the Bears, outside of 2 areas: the running game and the creation of turnovers. Those 2 things are where they have the advantage. And I don't know if it is enough to take over every other advantage the Packers have. You know, Evan Williams said it at his locker this week. If the Packers play their best, they can beat anybody. And it's no different here, right? This team that showed up last week, if they show up this week, the Packers will win this game by 10 points. The Bears are going to try to control the clock. They're going to try to limit possessions for the Packers on offense. They're running the ball. They're going to try to force Jordan into making mistakes. If they can just not make stupid mistakes, control the run game, just like they've done in recent weeks, I think Jordan and that offense will make enough plays to win this game comfortably. The Packers have a ton of paths to victory. The Bears really have one. And both of these things have to happen. They got to run the piss out of the ball and get turnovers, win the turnover battle. If they just do one of those things, if Caleb struggles, their running game struggles, and they get 2 picks, I don't think that's enough for them to win the game. If they run the ball and they don't get any turnovers, I don't know if that's enough to win the game. I don't know if that run game can keep up with the Packers offense. That run game only scored 20 points last week, even though it was against the Eagles. And the Packers only scored 7 or something. So, I mean, you got to take the loser lap on that one. But again, I don't think that they can win this game if they just do one of those things. But again, if the Bears end up winning this game, I predict it's going to be because the Packers turned it over and played stupid, and the Bears were able to run effectively. And if that happens on Sunday, the Bears have a shot. Keeping it simple, again, I see a great game on Sunday. I think the final score, I'm predicting 28-20 Packers. I think we see the Bears run well early, but I do think the Packers are going to get ahead by about 2 scores early on, and it's going to take the Bears out of the run game. I think they make a late comeback to make it a 1-score game. I just think Caleb and the Bears, they're feeling themselves a bit, maybe a bit too much. It reminds me, the way they're talking about the Bears, their fans, and even the media, right? It reminds me of the 2023 season, that first week. You know, Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets now. There's, you know, a new king in the North. It's Justin Fields. He's going to win the MVP. You guys remember this. There was so many people that I respect. Dan Orlovsky was one of them, saying Justin Fields was going to win MVP. And the Bears were going to light the world on fire. And the Packers were dead and blah, blah, blah. And then the Packers go out and beat the hell out of them twice that year. So again, I just feel like the Bears are feeling themselves a bit too much. I think if they lose that game last week to the Eagles, I think it actually makes this game harder. I really do. So I think it's going to be a great game. I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. I will connect with you guys after the game. I'm actually off on Monday after the game, so I'm going to record the podcast on Monday, try to have it to you as fast as possible. Next week, it's Broncos, then it's Bears again. That Broncos team, that game is going to be a lot of fun. That Broncos team is really, really good. So, well, I shouldn't say that. We'll talk about it next week. They're a bit vulnerable, but their defense is really good. So it's going to be a great game. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Go Pack, go.